Thank you very much. Not actually in my bedroom, but in my study. But I think better for me and definitely better for all of you that I'm not in the room with you. My younger brother's head of infectious diseases at Royal Brisbane. He tells me we're currently in the top part, the peak of the 2024 influenza spike. And I think I've come down with it and it's not a good one. So please bear with me and I'm sorry I can't be there in person. So today I want to share with you our work on global megatrends at CSIRO. We started this in 2009. We've kept it alive. We have a big database of trends and drivers shaping the future. First of all, let's think about what is a megatrend. This photo actually comes from Tamarama Beach in New South Wales in Sydney. And in the water there is a rip. And, being near the Gold Coast and on near the coast, a lot of you will know how dangerous rips are in the surf. They're the most dangerous aspect of going to the beach by far. But they're also great for those of you who are surfers. Will love a rip because it gets you out to the whitewash through the break. Now you can't easily see the rip in the black and white photo, but when I go to the next one, to the color photo, you can. Now that's not photoshopped or AI'd or anything. That is purple dye put in the water by University of New South Wales researchers to demonstrate to the community how a RIP functions. So why am I showing you all this and going into detail about RIPs? They're a great analogy to what a megatrend is. Megatrends occur at the intersection of geopolitical, economic, environmental, social, technological, and legal trends, patterns of change. They combine and coalesce to give us more significant trajectories of change, which really impact our career, our company, our sector. I'd argue that around your own career, there are megatrends forming, reshaping your future possibilities for your family, for your life, for your career and your company. And your ability to go from that black and white photo where you kind of know it's out there to a clearer picture of how these megatrends are impacting you is what megatrends analysis is all about. There's no single set of megatrends for everyone. Everyone has their own unique set of megatrends, and it's a useful thing in your life to do is to just be continually thinking and reflecting about how these trends are forming and creating change around you so that you can harness that change and make the most of it. Okay, so let's jump into CSIRO's current view of the future. So this is work we've been doing for a while, and it's been hugely popular and interesting with Australia. So we share it externally, and we're building a trends database with all the different types of trends that sit under here. And our snapshot of the future at the moment starts with adapting to climate change. The urgent search for cost-effective climate adaptation measures. We start here because data says worse than we thought, sooner than we thought. I'll show you some of that data. Next one is sustainable solutions. Innovating for, this is food, water, mineral, energy resources. I'm going to focus a bit on energy resources because they're in the spotlight so much. This is about the efficient use of resources to achieve outcomes. It's also about biodiversity conservation and emissions reductions, which will drive the business agenda. The wellness journey is about it's about the rise of infectious diseases, which I am currently experiencing, but it is also about diet, exercise, and sleep. Masses of data and information on these things show what an important benefit they get. And for the built environment, for the urban environment, active transportation, recreation, physical aspects, massively used. Build it, they do use it. And I think there's a huge opportunity to achieve wellness through how we build our cities and houses. Local resilience amidst global disruption. We are seeing some unusual geopolitical events, concerning ones, different. It looks like the world is wrestling with something. In this, we sort of unpack what some of it means, and we look at the impact on trade, travel, supply chains, defense, and overall the rising importance of sovereign capability, the ability to do things from within our own nation. Connected communities is about the rise of telework, telehealth, online retail, and the digital economy, which is heavily influencing the built environment, especially telework. It's not that we've stopped wanting offices in cities, but we want them for different things than what we're used to, and our mobility patterns are also changing. Generative futures is the story of artificial intelligence, and that's where most of my time goes now. We've seen the rise of generative AI and foundation AI models. They've broken the barrier in terms of human capability in so many spaces, and they're likely to keep on doing it with pretty profound implications for how we work and what we can do. Then we get into the new tapestry, which is about demographic change, cultural change, diversity is on the rise. And the way we acquire and use trusted information is also changing. So I want to jump now into the megatrends. and take you through a story of what this world of change is all about. So to start with, on climate change, why are we so concerned? Why is there urgency here? This data set is a good one to look at for climate change. It comes from Cape Grim in northwest Tasmania. It's a remote weather monitoring station that we co-host with the Bureau of Meteorology, and it measures parts per million of carbon dioxide. This is the physics of climate change, and it's inescapable. If we go from 1980 to 2023 December, probably a more recent data set you can download. For all the world's efforts to take emissions down, this is what's going on. This is as the concentration of carbon dioxide increases in our atmosphere, we get warming. And this is why we are seeing the more extreme ends of climate change reach. So we thought 1.5 degrees was on the table as something post 2030. If you look only a year back, scientists were writing papers about whether or not we would hit 1.5 degrees Celsius before 2030. That's average global warming compared to pre-industrial times. Well, unfortunately, the European Copernicus Climate Change Research Unit have found that we did already. So the 12 months leading up to February this year already was at 1.502 degrees Celsius above long-term warming. So, that's where the urgency for adaptation to comes into play. However, it's not beyond us. We can build environments. Western Sydney would be an area where, extreme heat is really important. Parramatta has seen temperatures close to 50 degrees Celsius in the summer, and there's an urgency to try and figure out how cities can be functional. And the good news is they can. Trees are so incredibly cost effective. These are the planned light rail tracks in Parramatta, Greater Sydney. Global studies have shown a 10 degrees Celsius drop in temperature for green tracks on hot days, and a 1% increase in tree canopy cover reduces air temp by 0.14 degrees Celsius during a heat wave. So greenery in urban development is this huge opportunity, and it's just so cost effective as well. In southeast Queensland, greenery in the catchment also delivers the benefit of slowing down floodwaters. So there's multiple benefits associated with, and the urban heat island effect is well understood. But I think if you look at our cities, there's room to massively increase greenery, livability, and also climate resilience. And also pretty simple things can be done for houses. When CSIRO looked at energy efficiency of housing in Australia, we actually found for an average Australian houses average about somewhere like 2.5 to 3 stars out of 10 stars for climate efficiency, where 10 is best and 0 is worth. But the bulk of houses being built in Australia are not at all climate efficient, energy efficient for cooling. They have dark roofs, they're closed, they don't ventilate. In areas like southeast Queensland, you want houses that breathe with ceiling fans, and a lot of the designs just don't cater for that. So simple things here. This is just one thing on cool roofs reduce maximum indoor temperature by up to 12 degrees Celsius. It's something we did on our house. That's just one design feature that can be put in place relatively cost effectively to take temperatures down as well. Okay. Insurance is another really big thing to watch. That you're being in the construction sector and the urban development sector, you'll totally know what's happening here. And it doesn't look like getting better anytime soon. Yes, all prices are rising, but insurance premiums are rising faster than the rest of the economy. The Actuaries Institute of Australia found insurance premiums increased 28% over the 1 year period leading up to March 2023, and 50% for high-risk properties in flood and fire-prone areas. They find 1.24 million households, 12% have insurance affordability stress in the current environment. So it would be, and it's likely that we will see parts of Australia where it's not feasible to get insurance for bushfires and floods. It's interesting watching Melbourne sort of wrestle with the flood mapping that it's currently doing. Brisbane does a pretty good job on it, but Melbourne hasn't done its flood mapping yet and is starting to publish them. And it's pretty controversial because this is affecting property prices. And that's hard, but at the same time, buyers should know. Buyers should always know what they're buying into. And I think that is another thing that the property sector just hasn't really come to terms with yet, but ensuring that the buyer has really good information about the risks to flood, extreme weather events, heat, bushfires prior to the purchase decision. Okay, let's jump into the next megatrend about sustainable solutions. And I'm going to look at, I'm picking tiny trends out of this massive database here. But I want to talk about one thing is the cooling economy. So electricity demand is increasing roughly twice the amount of energy growth. So we're wanting more and more electricity. Electric vehicles play a role, but the big thing is actually air conditioning. The world will triple energy use for cooling by 2050, and it needs electricity equal to the entire United States, European Union, and Japan to do this. In Australia, we spent 9.3 billion on new cooling devices in 2020. That's up 10% from the year before. And currently, air conditioning uses 25%, or cooling devices in general use 25% of our electricity. But in a heat wave like the Townsville heat wave, that was closer to 75%. And in Brisbane this year in February, when it got to temperatures were high, but humidity were high. So the combined, the heat index was really high. And when it's humid, air conditioning has to work more. And in Brisbane in February, we saw the highest ever usage of electricity on the grid at any one point in time. And tens of thousands of houses lost power because the grid couldn't cope. So I think that's another aspect to sustainability. Oh, yeah, I've got the graph here. Sorry, at 4 p.m. 2020 on 22nd of January, you can see that spike. I remember my Google display telling me that the feels like temperature was 47 degrees. The actual temperature was 38 degrees, but because humidity was so high, it was one of those days you just couldn't do anything if you were outdoors. But that's the impact of it. The air conditioning has to work just so much harder when it's humid, and that was the spike that we had. So let's switch to sort of some of the solutions and why you're seeing a plane, but batteries is really what's one of the big things that's going on, that's changing what's possible. We've heaps of solar panels, and the amount of electrons on the grid is way more than we expected. But we are seeing battery technology massively improve in multiple spaces. The costs of batteries have come down, and grid deployed batteries are feasible, and the energy density of batteries has improved as well. So if you buy a Tesla, your energy density is about 270 watt hours per kilogram, which is a high performing battery in a car. But we've seen the Chinese company CATL has introduced into the market batteries at 500 watt hours per kilogram, which makes commercial flight possible. So it's quite possible a Sydney-Canberra flight would be fully electric into the future. And this is sort of starting to be what's possible with battery technology. But for a lot of our energy dilemmas, batteries are the answer. Really, the renewable, the use of solar panels are really cheap. We're going to see a lot of that happen. But what is the big thing to unlock it all is batteries. We need to be able to recycle them, though. This is another aspect for the built environment that we need much better recycling capabilities. Only 10% of Australians' lithium-ion battery waste was recycled in 2021, compared to 99% of lead acid battery. So it's possible. And we'll have 1 million tonnes of end-of-life solar panels by 2034 to 2035, according to a University of New South Wales study. Solar panels aren't things you want to put into landfill. Victoria has made it illegal, but no other states and territories have yet. Wellness journey. So first of all, look at aging. In 2020, Australia was 16% over 65. 2026, it'll be 22%. On average, Australians live 30 years longer than they did a century ago. Age dependency ratio is forecast to rise 52% to 58%. And people over 85 years are 2% of the population, it'll be 3%. So we're going to have a much more aged demographic. But also the amount we're spending on aged care is also likely to increase. We spend 1.5% on aged care. UK is 2.2%. Netherlands up at 3.9%. So we're below OECD average at the moment, but it's likely that there's got to be massive expansion in the aged care sector and the provision of aged care services. Pardon me. Diet, exercise, and sleep. So I'm just summarizing a massive trends in our database that show limited change. Sugar consumption, saturated fats, processed carbs continue to be consumed at excessive rates by Australians, and it's doing this enormous damage to us. Exercise patterns, roughly 70% of us don't get the required 30 minutes of intense physical activity every day that is suggested as sort of a minimum of what we need. And then sleep patterns is something we're starting to find out more and more about, but people don't get enough sleep. Screen time might be an issue, especially for adolescents, but is also, we're learning so much from the science of the health and well-being benefits of sleep. And these three things come together. If they're done together, they each gets easier and better with the others. So there's still this huge opportunity to improve this. And I think with the built environment, building cities, developments that cater for movement, for health and well-being is something that could be done more and better. What happens if you do these things well? A recent study showed us how beneficial this could be. Now, this is not the whole population. This was 700,000 United States veterans. So they are a different cohort. But they found that if you do those things there, you get an extra 21 to 24 years of not just living, but quality living. So it's an enormous benefit. And the things that gave you that benefit were exercise, being free from opioid addiction or any form of drug addiction, not smoking, managing stress, having a good diet, not regularly binge drinking, having good sleep hygiene, having positive social relationships. So I think this is the sort of scale of the benefit that can be delivered to the Australian community if these things improve. Exercise is at the top of the list. And just for any sort of mental health or physical health thing, exercise is just so magically beneficial. If I could find a drug that would magically cure so many different ailments and make you feel better and healthier, and it would be exercise. And it's something that is available, but is still not done. And that I think is one of the things that is relevant to the built environment, because built environments can make us exercise more. Local resilience amidst global disruption. Supply chain breakdowns is the first thing to stress here. And this is a snapshot of a US aircraft carrier in the Red Sea, where it was sent to manage the Houthi attacks on shipping, which caused big shipping companies like Maersk to stop going through the Suez Canal and go all the way around Africa, with an enormous increase in shipping costs. And so some of the global events that are happening can do this. The South China Sea is another contended area. What does this sort of stuff do to us? Well, that's what happened to shipping costs. And this, for those in the construction sector, you'll understand this was painful and continues to be painful. This is contributing to price rises of all the things that we import to build houses with. The rising shipping costs are fueling that. So not just for those trade routes, it actually had flow-on effects to shipping around the whole world. And when we look at the Reserve Bank data on what we know is happening in the construction sector, it's heavily tied to that. In the pandemic, it was tied to the shutdown of supply chains, and the builder would go to the shipping port to get the pieces and parts they needed for a construction job, and they wouldn't be available. They wouldn't be available next week. A project got delayed. Another project got delayed. We actually saw 2023 construction sector company insolvencies in the year 2023. So an unprecedented number, and huge impact. And right at a time where there's so much demand for housing, the sector is having these sorts of challenges. And you can see materials inflation there for construction, of how it just boomed in the pandemic. So I guess it points towards supply chain resilience into the future. Sorry, there we go. Like a third of global shipping goes through the South China Sea. If that were to shut down, there'd be a massive impact on our construction sector again. And I think sovereign capability starts to come into it. When you look at your supply chains, you look at the China Plus strategy or the domestically sourced strategy as well. But there is a need to start to look at sovereign capability in so many spaces. Connected communities. Teleworking looks like it's here to stay. It is debated. It is liked by some, disliked by others. Roughly, I think the statistic is about 45% of people work from home some of the time and 30% most of the time. And it took a big jump up during the pandemic. Does it? Yeah, so 45% some of the time, 30% most of the time. A systematic review in 2023 of 26 studies finds that the majority conclude that work from home has a positive impact on worker productivity and performance, but there's key caveats. It depends, and there's many perspectives. It depends on the type of work, the nature of the employee, and a range of other things. Overall, though, work from home is likely to, I don't know about increasing, but I think it's going to continue to be there as a factor, and we want to maximize its benefits. We also need to build offices and city centres that respond to the needs of a teleworker community, because that's part of it. They don't have to be there, They'll go there because they want to be there, which makes a tighter focus on design and the quality of design. Also in digitization, the nature of the workforce is changing. By 2024, there will be over 1 million tech workers in Australia. This will grow to 1.2 million by 2027, an average annual growth rate of 5.5%. So these are data scientists, software engineers, computer programmers, web and graphic designers, for example. And the share of Australia's workforce in these jobs will rise from 6.7% to 8.5%. So this community is growing. They also are a heavy teleworking community. And we did an analysis of hotspots. We looked for where all of Australia's Silicon Valleys were in another CSIRO project called the Economic Geography of Our Digital Industries, and all the maps and data and reports online if you want to have a look at that one. And we find interesting things. We find, for example, on the Gold Coast at Burleigh Heads, not too far from where you are, is a concentration of web and graphic designers where there's sort of an organic industry starting to form. And I think a lot of them were teleworkers or just took advantage of the work from anywhere thing that happened in the pandemic to set up somewhere nice like Burleigh Heads, and a professional, it's a bright red hotspot on the map at a national scale. Okay. Generative futures, AI. So, it fills the news headlines. 80% of what you hear about AI is hype. The 20% that isn't is enough to completely change your career and company forever. And I think it's got a lot more to do. You ain't seen nothing yet. I think it's the amount of R&D going into the pipeline that is creating these possibilities is huge. These are tasks that were given to AI. The dotted line is a human baseline performance. And these challenges are given to see how long it takes for models like ChatGPT or there's hundreds of models out there doing different things, how long it takes to do things like image classification, basic level reading comprehension, competition level mathematics, multitask understanding. You can see how the human baseline has been met really quickly and before time. I would say, I wrote the 2019 roadmap for Australia on artificial intelligence, and we did not see 2023. We underestimated hugely what the capabilities of AI would be. And we didn't really see what would happen in the field of generative AI. It all kind of unfolded so quickly. So I think it's good to not overestimate what AI can do, but also good to not underestimate it. It will be a significant factor reshaping how you do your career and how your company works. And companies that do figure it out will start to push ahead. A lot of the tools you'll be seeing on AI are these ones. I use all of them. ChatGPT 5, it will come out probably next year. It's still ChatGPT 4.0 at the moment. There's Claude 3. Llama has introduced 3.1. Llama and Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, they're going on a strong open source model. It's the only fully open source one where they publish the full model and all of the weights in the deep learning model, which are the critical bits, so that anyone can download and start working with that. But they're trying to build an entire ecosystem of AI developers off their foundation models. These are also called foundation models, where they're trained on enormous amounts of data with really high-powered computers using lots of GPUs from NVIDIA. And they are able to support a lot of wide-ranging tasks above them. And I think we're moving into the era of these foundation models. We'll start to see more emerge. There's more than what I've listed here as well. There's other language models like Mistral, which is also open access. It's a rapidly evolving space. But the capabilities are strong and improving. And it's hard to sort of predict where and how it will all unfold. But it's associated with a lot of productivity benefits. It's software engineering is one space where software engineers using some of these tools, like Claude 3 or GPT, are doing their jobs 53% faster. Management consultants were found to do their jobs 20 to 40% faster. Customer sales staff 14 to 30% faster in studies. So it does let you do things faster, better, cheaper. And I think a lot of what is happening is there's a lot of BYO AI that people are bringing these tools in and using them in the workforce without telling their bosses necessarily. And it's being done sort of haphazardly. I think it will increasingly become mainstreamed. There's obviously all the concerns around data privacy and confidentiality, and they're pretty good concerns. We don't really know all the answers yet. But I think these tools will start to change what you do. I should also stress though that this is part of what AI is about. A lot of what AI is about is like these are generative AI models. There's so much more to AI than this. A lot of the companies here, you'll have a data set that's really valuable for something, and you can use it to train a machine learning model. And I think that is also something that probably huge scope to do that in the construction sector to speed up development assessment, for example. We could start to train AI to do it more. But in so many spaces in the construction sector, cost forecasting, AI can be used as well. So I think you kind of need an AI strategy. You need to look at adopting AI tools that solve business problems. You need to adapt to the world of AI, and you need to look at the governance around it too and its ethics, especially when you're using confidential and private data. So speaking on governance, the National Framework for the Assurance of Artificial Intelligence was published in June this year. It's only a month and a bit old. It recites the ethics principles I wrote in there, which are 11 principles on how to be ethical with AI. Pardon me. But I think it's all for government and it's all sort of voluntary. However, I don't think it's too far away from having some sort of mandatory regulatory approach around it. I think there's a lot of language about that. Europe has enacted AI legislation, which has been quite controversial. Some see it as excessive. Interestingly, Meta has not released the multimodal functionality of its new models in Europe because it's concerned about the regulations there. And that was quite an interesting limitation. So bottom line is, I think expect more regulation and government oversight in AI. Lastly, the new tapestry. We have a much more multiculturally diverse Australia than we used to, and it's going to keep on getting more multiculturally diverse. You can see there, 9.8% of people were born overseas in 1950 to 29.1% in 2022, 25% of young people, and we can see countries like India, Philippines increasing in the concentrations inside Australia. So a much more multiculturally diverse Australia is on the way, and that'll change how things work. Another sort of social trend is how we spend more money on experiences rather than material products. So MasterCard's 2023 Trends Report, based on consumer spending data and shows experiential purchases are growing faster than products and things. So during that time, 2019 to 2023, we increased our expenditure on experiences like going to a restaurant, theatre, having a holiday, as opposed to material products like buying a car or something physical. We tend to be growing more on the experiential space of things. Oops. Which is sort of an interesting reflection, sort of to wrap the presentation, is thinking about the experiential factor of the future. Baristas were supposed to be automated in all our models. I remember we looked at them back in 2016 when we started looking at workforce impacts of digital economy. It's rules-based, repetitive, structured. There's machines that do it. You would expect it to be automated, but baristas have stood the test of time and they're likely to be with us in another 10 to 20, 30, 50 years, I'd say. That's because they smile at you, they talk to you, they know your name. There is an experiential good being supplied as well. And I think for the construction and building sector, this is also thinking about the experiential aspect of the people that you build for. So that's a real quick snapshot of our trends database. I hope that's interesting. I think we go to another speaker and then we have a chance for Q&A soon. Thank you very much.